What is up, everybody? Welcome to Destination the Show, episode 82, 2025 MLB Draft Demo Overview. Today, we are talking about college pitching. My name is Jamie Cameron, joined as always by Jeremy Nygaard. What's going on, my guy? How are you?
I'm good. I feel like you're over caffeinated at this point and like wired. I don't know if that's accurate or not,
I
but
am wired. I came straight from my kids' baseball game to recording. I went straight from like 8 hours of watching the draft combine to my kids' baseball game. Um, And the draft is near. I mean, we're less than a month out, man. I'm starting to get excited. I'm starting to shake off those kind of fears and like a little bit of boredom with this class being a little bit less interesting. And I'm kind of fired up to actually get this show on the road. So yes, maybe I'm a little bit hyped.
that's good. Bring all that energy tonight. We don't have
Yeah.
Carlos to lean on for for
Right.
download, so you're gonna have to bring it.
Right. I got it. I'm with it. Yeah, I don't know if you want to talk about the Twins. I don't. So if if not, we definitely have a packed slate, man. We took a week off last week to talk to Carlos about his kind of big picture overview of the 2025 class. The week before, we talked about college infielders. This week we're moving on to college pitching, which I gotta say is a really interesting demo. So anything you want to touch on, or you just want to jump right into digging in some guys?
Well, I think we can jump in soon. The part that I don't know if it holds me back from getting like excited about the group in general is as a Twins fan,
Yep.
they just don't often draft from this demographic, right? They do, but not
No, you're
right.
right. You're right.
So there's a lot of names that I think we'll talk about tonight that'll be like, man, if he's still on the board, like the Twins have to consider him, right?
Yes.
But then in the back of my mind, I'm like, probably not,
So
and
I got
that's
two.
bothersome.
Yeah, I feel that, and there definitely is like an established track record, right? Like if we look at, I need to slow down, take a breath, woosah. Um, if we look at the
Yeah.
track record,
Take a
if
breath, Jamie.
if we look at the track record of this regime, right, what they've done on day one is take college left-handers. They took Steven Hajar, they took Cade Povich, now in the bigs with the Orioles. They have not taken a college righty on day one. Unless I'm misremembering.
Ever?
With this regime, and day one is different this year. However, we do know through a little bit of digging that they were pretty high on Trey Savage, and he was scooped a pick in front of them. And so here's the hypothesis I've been wondering about, and let me put this to you and see if it like piques your interest. I think it's fair to say now, right, that this regime has an established track record with taking mid to late round guys and turning them into more than the sum of their parts, right? Like Zebby Matthews, right? Finishing Joe Ryan's development, Louis Varland, like whoever. Like there's a ton of examples of guys who are now in the major league bullpen or in the major league rotation. The wondering I have is what if they took better clay to start with? What if you took an elite arm? And I'm not necessarily saying like a Hagen Smith or a Chase Burns because that's like a top 5 pick. But what if you took a first round caliber arm who already has some outstanding pitch shapes in the mix? We've seen that the Twins do well kind of honing and polishing college pitching profiles. So do we think they might be able to wring even more value by leaning into that strength in a little bit of a different way? What say you?
Well, I mean, don't we feel like that's the Connor Prelip profile?
Mm-hmm.
And it's the remains to be seen. I don't know that his stuff has really ticked up much since the like what was seen at the combine. It's just it hadn't really been seen, right? He'd thrown 30 college innings.
Yeah.
But I think that's what we're talking about.
Right.
He had obviously all the injury problems,
Right.
but I think when you're talking about the ball of clay being more elite, like the stuff that he had coming in, the fastball slider combo is better than any other pair of pitches, probably, right? That this regime's taken it all.
Right.
But I think that's like an incomplete grade because doing his thing now in his first full healthy season.
Yep.
But what's it gonna be?
And that's fair. Incomplete grade is fair. I also think you can counter that and say Connor Pridlow's probably going to contribute at the big league level in his first full healthy season with the Twins organization. So now what if we take a guy who doesn't have that extensive injury history? And there's going to be some guys off the table, like Kade Anderson is going to go. We'll talk about all of them. There's not a lot of guys in this cluster of top 50 college arms we're going to talk about today who have an extensive injury history, which isn't to say they won't get injured, because this is primarily a podcast about Twins prospects. But I do think you can make a compelling case that if the Twins grab the right guy and things break their way, you have someone who's in the major league rotation in 2 years as a guy with the ceiling of someone who can start a playoff game. Like that's potentially what we're talking about. And that's not to kind of belittle the guys they've taken later, whether that's Ebby or Fessa or Andrew Morris or any of the other guys in the major leagues. But we are talking about a really interesting, diverse, and deep college pitching crop in the top 50 this year. So I think what you say is right? There might be some profiles where if that guy's there, dang, like we really have to think about this because someone's going to drop on day one. And we've heard a lot about college bats kind of pushing their way up the board. And it's making me wonder about where some of these college arms are going to fit.
Yeah, and I think the argument that I've made with Jace Laviolette of being a high ceiling guy in a system where the Twins can afford to do that, I feel the same about pitching too.
Mm-hmm.
Where if you take if the first round pick is a high ceiling college, like you can go to that demographic knowing that you have a lot of solid options. We've talked about it. Right now, the depth is being tested at the major league level.
Yeah, no kidding.
There's a lot of arms in the minor league level that project to be major league starters, and I'm very okay with rolling the dice for a guy that could be a front of the rotation guy, knowing that the floor might be this just ain't gonna work. Typically, that's high school, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think there are some guys that we'll talk about today that maybe check that box. And I'm more for let's take a prep guy. Let's take a home run shot with a prep guy. This year at 16, I'm debating where I go right now.
Yeah, I'm fully with that opinion around the college arms. And, when we get closer, we'll kind of talk about like who are our favorite guys for particular organizations. And I'm excited to have that conversation with you. There's a very small cluster of prep guys who I would be all in on, but it just is the way the board is shaping up to me. It really looks like college hitter or potentially college arm with that 16th pick, but we'll kind of see. So here's what we'll do, dude. We'll, just like the college infielders, we'll go through almost all of the names in the consensus top 50, which is quite a few. We'll give an overview of like a little bit of their background, some of their numbers from this year, and then I'm going to try and pose to you a kind of pivotal question around that guy and that profile for us to kind of dig into. So we might spend a little bit less time on some than others because I think these guys at the top of the board are probably out of range, but they're still worthy of a little discussion. So first guy I want to talk about with you is Jamie Arnold. He is now number 2 on the consensus board. Kade Anderson is hot on his heels, man. And some people have actually vaulted Kade Anderson over Jamie Arnold in their rankings. We'll get to that in a bit. But here's Jamie Arnold's numbers from 2025. 84.2 innings pitched. He did miss a couple of starts with some fatigue stuff, I want to say. 298 ERA, 295 FIP. Struck out 33.9% of hitters, walked 7.7%. You are talking about a Chris Sale, a less extreme, but a Chris Sale type delivery where the ball is coming from like a low release, a wide angle. If you're a left-hander, it's coming kind of across your body. And so here's my question about Jamie Arnold, because he was in consensus top spot on the board for pretty much the entire cycle up until 2 weeks ago, and now Ethan Holiday has pipped him. Do you think that this is more about prospect fatigue, or is this dip more about other players who have kind of come up and surpassed him, and maybe like a little bit of a dip in his performance? Because his number, if you want to be really picky, his numbers are ever so slightly less impressive than 2024. So what's your take on that?
Right, and I think it's an excellent question because I think it's a combination of a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
When you're at the top, everybody's gunning for you. There's only one way to go down. He's been at the top really the whole season.
Yep.
And so any not great performance, there's only one way to go. You said, in the notes, prospect fatigue or performance.
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe less his performance, even though, like you mentioned, it hasn't been great. He went from over 105 innings to 84 innings.
Yep.
He struck out 159 in 105, 119 in 84. Walked more batters, one more batter this year than last year. So he's backed up a little. I mean, it went from elite to still very, very good.
Right.
But some of these other guys we've talked to have kind of taken that next step. He didn't really have that. I mean, he would have if he would have improved on last year. He's hands down the best pitcher in the draft.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And so I think it's kind of the combination of all of those things that now have put him as a debatable first college arm off the board. And I don't think if I were to make a mock right now, I wouldn't have him be the first pitcher off the board. And so I also, in digging up on these guys a little bit more for the show, I don't think he's my favorite.
Okay.
Like if I'm picking, it's like, hey, you're on the board, take a college pitcher. I'm not taking him.
Who's your guy? Who's your guy? I gotta ask.
I think Kade Anderson is better.
Okay.
And I think they're close enough to be arguable. I think Liam Doyle is a dude too.
Yeah.
Which we can get there, but I just think there's enough questions that then the next question becomes the elephant in every draft room is what's it going to take to sign this guy?
Mm-hmm.
Because if it's not a huge difference, the $100,000 maybe doesn't tip the scale, but it's like if you can get that guy for $500,000 less, probably take that guy.
Yep.
So I think your question was very good. I think it's a combination of all those things.
Thank you.
Where do you go on this?
I mean, the more I dig into Kade Anderson in particular, and I want to touch on a lot of details with him, the more I'm starting to lean that way too. I know this is literally off the back of saying I would pick Arnold merely a week ago, but let's talk about Anderson for a second. So he's currently consensus 7. He has one outlier ranking right now, which is Keith Law's board from mid-April, where he's 22nd. As soon as that is updated, you're going to see Kade Anderson shoot up even further, and he's most likely going to finish as a top 5 guy in this class. But let's talk about his numbers and what he's done. Now, I'm going to start with the negative. Only guy on this list today who's had a Tommy John. So that is...
I don't think that's true.
Okay.
But yes, obviously he has, which is he has, and that's a mark that I have next to his name. But chances are over half of these guys in the next handful of years are going to have Tommy John. He's already had his, and we've moved on.
Okay,
hopefully, right?
So let's talk about his numbers from year 1 at LSU to year 2. Also of note, draft eligible sophomore. Went from 38 innings pitched last year to 110 and counting this year. Strikeout rate last year, 33.9%. This year, 38.2%. Walk rate last year, 11.5%. This year, 6.7%. ERA last year, 3.99. This year, 3.44. FIP last year, 3.25. This year, 2.90. So we talk about this a lot, and people are going to start rolling their eyes the amount that I say it. But teams weigh age-adjusted performance heavily meaning the older you get, the better you should perform in your conference. So you want to see a steady improvement curve, and that is exactly what Anderson has shown. I think the Anderson versus Arnold question really comes down to, like, you can make it fairly simple, in my opinion. Are you more interested in outlier release traits, or are you more interested in elite pitch shapes? If you're interested in the release traits, Arnold's your guy. If you want really exceptional pitch shapes, like already, Anderson is throwing like a really high vert fastball, spinning, like he's generating spin rates up to like 2,900 RPMs. This is like uncommon stuff, and he's a lefty too. And so I think there's like a really strong case that more organizations would lean towards what Kade Anderson has to offer now, even though he's had the TJ over Jamie Arnold. But talk me out of that if that's too simple of a way to put it.
Nope. No, I think that's right on, and I think that's why Anderson goes first. But after 5 picks of the draft, I would expect both of these guys to be off the board.
I agree.
Right?
And let's also think about the teams that are there. I mean, like, dude, can you imagine Seattle getting their hands on one of these guys? That just feels like a match made in heaven. They've been rumored to be in on arms. Most of their prospect system, which is their farm system, which is really good, is like bat driven at the moment. So that makes a lot of sense to me for someone at 3.
Yep.
Okay, let's talk about the third guy on the list. We're at 8, and we're on our third college left-handed pitcher. This is Liam Doyle. I think this is one of the toughest evals in the class, man. So transferred. So he's pitched at 3 different colleges in 3 years. Coastal year 1, Ole Miss year 2, Tennessee year 3. This year at Tennessee, 95 innings pitched. Let's see, what did we get? 3.20 ERA, 2.45 FIP. Just wait till we get to the strikeout rate. 42.6% strikeout rate, 8.3% walk rate. We are talking about a truly unique fastball shape that like doesn't even really exist in the majors at the moment from Doyle, and he throws it high 90s. There's a nasty slider too, but he's really much more of a 2-pitch guy. A lot of folks ding him for like having what they would call like an effortful delivery, right? Meaning there's some concern that he doesn't repeat it well, and effortful deliveries are kind of linked to like guys who have some reliever risk. So how do you navigate? And I realize this isn't the question that I wrote down, but that's what I'm going to ask you. How much do you care about someone's delivery, I guess, and then how do you shoehorn him into the top of this class of pitching, given that you might say there's more reliever risk there? We don't like what the delivery looks like quite as much, and there's kind of 2 pitches instead of like a more diverse arsenal like the other guys have.
So I mean, I've been following the draft for quite a while, and I remember one of the first like serious pitching prospects that there was this argument about, well, he's probably not a starter, even though he's been a starter, because he's got this full of effort, violent delivery, and people were writing him off as going to be a reliever, and that was Max Scherzer, who turned out to be
a Hall of Famer,
really, really good, right? And the way that Scherzer carries himself on the mound, right? Tons of emotion, like all of these things that you're like, can he do it? And Liam Doyle, to me, kind of fits in that same type of player. Mm-hmm. That's not to say that he's going to be a starter, but or not a starter. I just feel like that's something that if you add this quality of an arm, you're going to get. You're not the floor is high, and so you may get a front end starter, you may get a high leverage reliever. That's a tougher pill to swallow at 8 through 10 or 7 through 10, where he's probably going to go.
Yeah.
But I think there's so much to like about him that's a risk that you take. Plus, it's 2025. You have the ability to get your hands on so much more data and so much more like almost under the hood diagnostic stuff, that you're going to be a very firm believer in, yes, I think he can repeat this delivery. Yes or no, I think that this may lead to injuries or transition to the bullpen. I'm not there yet. Obviously, I don't have that information in front of me.
Right.
But I would draft him as a starter, and I would have a hard time having a huge differentiation between Arnold and Doyle at this point.
Interesting.
I think Anderson is there's a bigger gap between Anderson and Arnold for me than there is between Anderson and Doyle. Or excuse me, Arnold and Doyle.
I disagree with that. And we'll see how that shakes out on boards, but the argument that I would make is the pitchability, I guess you would call it pitchability aspect of Arnold and Anderson, I find more similar than Doyle and the other two, where Doyle, and this is not a criticism of Doyle, right? But he comes in, fire and brimstone. He's going to throw the ball hard as hell. I think there's a little bit more refinement in the other two profiles. And so I would say at the moment, Anderson 1A, Arnold 1B, a little bit of a gap, and then Doyle. And I'm really not sure how final boards are going to reflect this or how they'll end up on consensus, because we're approaching, like in the next 2 weeks, everyone updating their final boards. And what I think we're probably going to see is like a really tight clustering of these guys in kind of the 3 to 6 to 7 range. So it's probably all going to come out in the wash, honestly.
Yeah, no, I think all those points are fair.
Okay, well, why don't we move on to okay, let me ask you this before we move on, because people like us to be twin specific. We're in agreement right here, just making sure I'm not assuming anything, that all three of these guys are going to be long gone by the time we get to the teens, when the Twins and Cubs and Red Sox and other teams that we enjoy to talk about are picking. Are you on board with that?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay. I would probably make that argument for this next guy as well. First, right-hander, we're going to talk about currently number 8 by consensus. That's right-handed pitcher Kyson Witherspoon out of Oklahoma. Here's another profile where we're just seeing really strong improvement, right? So he's currently 20 years old. That's going to appeal to teams after pitching 80 innings in 2024 with a 3.71 ERA and a 4.18 FIP, which is nothing to sniff at. He pitched 95 this year in the SEC with a 2.65 ERA and a 2.86 FIP. Increased his strikeout rate from 24% to 31.8%. Decreased his walk rate, which was a problem last year, from around 11% down to 5.9%, which is really stingy. Really, really nice 1-2 combo of fastball and slider. Works in the mid to upper 90s with the fastball. Really tight breaking slider. I guess my question on Witherspoon is, has he flown under the radar too much? Like, he's a guy we have barely spoken about, but I mean, you just heard me read off his numbers. That's exceptional SEC production. Do we feel like he is maybe been slept on slightly, which I know maybe sounds like a ridiculous question about the person who's ranked consensus number 10 player in this class, but what's your take?
I feel like it's just he's been not really under the radar, but just not squarely on the radar, because he hasn't done anything to really go up or down, right? He's been pretty consistent. Numbers are very good. You're going to get a guy that is at least a mid-rotation guy.
Yep.
But his story is that he was a junior college guy.
Yep.
With his brother, right? So
yep.
his brother was the more sought after guy out of high school.
Yep. Malachi.
And so, yeah, so I think there's a different story there to be told. 124 strikeouts in 95 innings, so his rate's a little bit lower than I think these other guys that we've talked about. But I mean, you're talking about a player that's going to be drafted, if not in the top 10, just outside the top 10.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Would you consider that his probable range?
Yeah.
And someone that will be able to defend his position and have a chance to be, like I mentioned, at least a mid-rotation guy. So I don't know that it's necessary that he's flown under the radar, because college pitchers not often exciting unless they're super elite,
Yeah.
and he's just maybe not at that level, but certainly a top of the top half of the first round, and shouldn't be on the board when like you mentioned the teams that we talk about will draft. But I think he'll be a very good pitcher, and he'll keep developing. I feel like he's got more ceiling there yet, more gas in the tank, and will be interesting to see both where he goes and where his brother goes and
Yep.
when.
Yep, 100%. I kind of like Kyson Witherspoon as a option for the Blue Jays, picking there at 8. I'll be interested to see where they go. Okay, let's talk about another guy. So we take a little bit of a jump on the consensus board now, and the next guy I'm keen to dig in on, Carlos spent a good amount of time talking about this guy last week. That is University of California, Santa Barbara pitcher, right-hander Tyler Bremner. Came into the season as a consensus top 5 profile, 6'2", 195. Had a, I guess you could call it, uneven start to the season, but rebounded nicely in the second half. 77.1 innings this season, 3.49 ERA, but a 2.14 FIP. Struck out 35.8% of hitters, walked 6.1. It's a metrically excellent fastball, a good slider, and a changeup that's maybe one of the top 2 or 3, certainly in the college class. So you have 3 established pitches there. I think room to work on command. And I guess my first question about Bremner would be, and like this might be moot because I kind of have a feeling he's going to go above his consensus ranking. I think he's been maybe overcorrected on a little bit on boards. But if you're the Red Sox, Cubs, Twins picking in the teens, is this too intriguing of a profile for one of those teams to pass up? Because I think you could make an argument that Bremner has more upside than Witherspoon, who's ranked 9 spots ahead of him by consensus. So if you're one of those teams picking in the teens, is Bremner a guy on your radar? It's like, hey, this guy could fall into our lap, the way that Braden Montgomery kind of fell into the Red Sox lap a year ago.
Yeah, I guess I don't put him quite at that level. I think he would certainly be of interest to teams drafting that level, or in that area. You mentioned Trey Savage earlier. We're talking about a similar-ish prospect, right?
Similar-ish, yeah.
And Savage was one of those guys that it's like when we got to 13, 14, 15, we sat here and we're like, well, he's got to go soon.
Yep.
And then he didn't go, and then he didn't go, and then he didn't go, and then I think where did he end up going? 2021.
I think it was the pick before the Twins, to the Blue Jays. Yep.
So I mean that's kind of the thing with Bremner, where I think this is where you got to talk about it. But once you get those top college guys off, how do we compose the rest of this draft to know if he's the best guy on these other teams' boards? Because you're gonna have high school hitters.
Yep.
Right.
For sure.
A ton of high school hitters, all the high school shortstops, and all the college shortstops, but some of those other college bats that we're not sure of. Right.
Yep.
The Irishes of the world that it's like they would be good in the late teens, but then you see him in mocks in the top 10. He's got to be number 1 on someone's board. I think what's going to happen is he's going to be 2 or 3 on a lot of teams' boards when they come up, and then tumble a little bit. So
yep.
if he's available when the Twins draft, I would certainly hope that they give him a lot of thought.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But it's like if that one high school bat that they like is available, that's probably the way to go. Right. And so this is the part that he's going to fall in the area of the draft where teams are going to start to like kind of different dudes.
Yep.
And I don't know. I think that's probably the range he goes. You think he's probably going to be gone when the Twins draft?
I think that he's been. So what we see on consensus board, which again is people are going to roll their eyes, is like there's like a lag time right between strong performance happening, And then people are like, oh, look at the strong performance happening. Let's update our final board. Bremner had a poor first half and a really good second half. His consensus rankings are a little bit all over the place. And I think we're going to see a little bit of a correction like we have again, like some of these boards that haven't been updated since April. He's 35th. He's 25th on PBR from mid-May. Those just are just very out of date at this point, to be honest. And I just think we're going to see he's sitting at 19. I'm gonna guess he's somewhere in the 13 to 15 range when it's all said and done. And I just sort of feel like, how is draft day going to unfold? Well, we know there's going to be some college bats pushed up. Some of those safer college bat profiles are going to get taken. Your Merrick Houstons of the world, your Ike Irishes of the world. And then you're going to have a team who says to themselves, what do we do well? Should we take a prep bat or like a high-floored college pitcher who we're confident we can get into our rotation within 2 years, and someone's going to jump on that maybe before we get to like 16, 17. I know that's like a lot of variables, but that's kind of how I see it maybe playing out.
See, and when I look at the draft order, it's the Cubs that jump out to me for him, right? Because once you get out of the top 10, tell me which of these teams are you like, yeah, college pitcher. A's?
No, college bat, I would say.
Rangers?
No, they're going to take Kyson Cunningham.
Giants?
Maybe. No.
Rays?
No.
Red Sox?
Maybe.
Twins? Cubs, right?
Yeah.
But that's your range, 15 through 17. Then you get to the Diamondbacks, the Orioles, the Brewers, like that because I think that's where this becomes, like you mentioned, the variables. Yeah.
Yep.
You got 5 teams in there that we just don't see taking a college pitcher, drafted between 11 and 15. That's where he falls.
Watch him go 11 now. I like the Red Sox potentially as a fit there. Like at the front end of that range, like they have Twins people in their pitching department. They've been doing a lot of interesting Devers trade aside. They've been
what is that?
I don't know what we talked about that. They've been doing a lot of interesting things with their pitching, so I do think they're potentially an option. But yeah, I like that shout for the Cubs a ton. That fits too with the Cubs, like really bat heavy system. Not that you're drafting for need, but I could definitely use more arms.
Yep.
Okay, last question on Bremner, and it applies to multiple people. How are you judging conference here? Because we've had 3 SEC guys and 1 ACC guy, and then we've got UC Santa Barbara. And no offense, that's a really good program, but this is not the best of the best in terms of competition. So how much are you factoring that in compared to some of the other guys we've talked about?
On a whole, I think it's a bigger factor than for the Twins.
Yeah.
The Twins have drafted tons of guys from this area.
Yep.
Like they've drafted this area heavy.
Yep.
And so I would view it as less of a deterrent. I really do think the Twins like the SEC. But when it comes to this particular geographical area, the Twins have scouted this really hard. So
yep.
I don't know that it's going to matter. Bremner's from San Diego, so they've seen him for years and years and years, and it could be like you said right away at the beginning of the year. Where was he on the board?
Top 5, like 3, 2, 3, 4, 5, somewhere in there.
So
range.
A guy that potentially could pay dividends that falls down the board. I think the sweet spot for him is certainly where the Twins draft, and I wouldn't hate the pick.
No,
so
I'd be in on that. I'm going to say that right now.
I'm just more curious to see how, because the college pitching demographic is one that you just don't see it coming, and all of a sudden it's like, wait, we just saw who go off the board at 24,
right?
Because it's a safer place to go. So, but yeah, I think he's going to be that prime range is right in that section that we talked about.
Yep. Okay, I dig it. Next time we'll spend a little bit less time on a couple of these guys. This is another guy I want to spend quite a bit of time on. So next up is Riley Quick, right-handed pitcher. He's 24th by consensus out of Alabama. So another SEC guy here, right? Different frame to everybody else that we've talked about. 6'6", 260. And so let's talk about his numbers a little bit. Just different from everyone. This is absolutely a drop off in terms of like collegiate performance, right? So 62 innings for Bama. He is also coming off a Tommy John the previous year. He was the other guy. Thank you for calling that out. 3.92 ERA this year, 3.49 FIP. So more middling performance, right? Certainly less dominant. 25.9% strikeout rate, 8.9% walk rate. Has had challenges with consistent strike throwing and walks in the past. I mean, there's just more moving parts. If you're 6'5", 6'6", 260, and this is more of a like sinker fastball type of profile, which is maybe like less in fashion as a like primary fastball. And so I don't think that he necessarily fits a lot of the teams that we talk about, and I'll be really interested to see where he ends up. I guess my question is, do you ding him significantly for slightly lessened performance? I mean, I guess that's answered by his draft board question, but given that he was coming back from surgery this year, how much kind of leeway do you give him in reestablishing the strike throwing and having an increased walk rate and all of that stuff?
I think quite a bit, right? I mean, it takes a while to come back. He did, and he came back quick. His pitches move a ton, right? That's kind of his thing. Like,
yep.
The command's not there, but there's a lot of movement. His name, like his profile, is one that intrigues me maybe more than some other names even above that we've talked about. Now, does he make sense at 16? I don't necessarily know that. But what do we know about the Twins? They've had a very good relationship with Alabama.
Sure.
They've drafted multiple pitchers from Alabama. They're going to have a really good idea based on what the Alabama coaching staff thinks. And he would be the type of high ceiling guy that because I think there's certainly ceiling there when he's already almost touching 100. Slider, curveball, changeup, big body, durable body. How's the arm? He's coming back from the injury.
Yeah.
Like I think it's at least worth talking about, knowing that they have the pick of the comp round, even though that's not the way they typically go. They'll be backwards. But I'm just very curious to see how the board plays out, because we haven't talked about a name yet that we obviously know is going to go higher. And so does that push quick down where the comp round makes more sense? Because right, it's all going to be, someone's going to go first, someone's going to go second. I think we've established we've established 5 of the top 6.
Yep.
Quick 7. Fair?
Yep, I think so.
And so where does that 7th happen? So on a whole, probably doesn't fit how the Twins typically draft. But like you said, if you have a little bit more ability to start with, what can we do with that?
Yep. And I'm hearing people listening to this screaming, "Where is Gage Wood?" We are gonna get to Gage. We'll get to Gage Wood. We're gonna reserve a good amount of time for him, but we've got 2 more names to talk through first. Next guy up, 32nd by consensus at the moment, still going in the College World Series, is Arkansas left-hander Zach Root. He bounced back nicely from an atrocious College World Series start in which he did not make it out of the first inning, unfortunately. He is a East Carolina transfer. So this has been his first year at Arkansas. East Carolina is just like an absolute pitching factory. 99 innings pitched this year, 3.62 ERA, 2.91 FIP. So his under the hood numbers outperforming his back of the baseball card numbers quite a bit. 30% strikeout rate, very good, very solid. 8.3% walk rate. He has a very funky delivery where if you watch him pitch, he gets so much kind of rotation in his leg lift that his pitching shoulder is almost facing towards the batter. So it's like kind of like a lot of deception and funk there. This is a very different profile from all the rest, because compared to some of the others we've talked about, this is really just not like a stuff profile. This is, oh, dang, this guy has 5 different pitches. He's got like a slider and a curveball and a changeup, and he can throw them all for strikes, and they're all serviceable. And his fastball is not actually that great metrically. It's pretty hittable. So I guess my question for him would be, at what portion of round 1 or day 1 are you comfortable taking kind of a polished pitchability profile over one with more upside? Or do you think that's more kind of organizational dependent, right? Like maybe there's a team that's like, we can make this, we can add 2 to 4 miles per hour to this and change the shape of this and all that good stuff.
It's definitely an organizational thing. I was wondering if you were going to go back before East Carolina and tell me where he was from. Because there's 2 teams that probably have seen him an absolute ton that we talk about.
You tell me.
Fort Myers High School.
Oh, there you go.
So when you live just down the road from the spring training complex where a lot of your employees spend a lot of time, I'd have to think that, I mean, he was a 4-year guy in high school.
Yeah.
They've seen this. Like, this isn't new. They've seen this kid pitch for the last 7 years. They've seen him on the circuit. They either like him or they don't. Right? There's not going to be a lot of wiggle room for someone that they've been able to see whenever they want for a long time. Looking through my lens, I'm not taking a guy like this because I'm taking a ceiling guy.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
Maybe there's more there. The Twins have done it. The Twins have added velo where we didn't think they should or could. It just doesn't. He doesn't do it for me.
Yeah.
If he goes, wins the Twins second, like they're
36.
Well, wins their second round pick.
54.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I don't want that at 54, but I think that's the range that probably makes the most sense. Is in that, late comp B or late comp A to second round. But there's going to be a team that's going to be like, oh goodness, yeah, let's get this guy. Probably a little bit before that, but I'd be comfortable taking him later in the second round. That's just not really the profile that tickles my fancy.
Yep, I'm definitely with you on that. So let's move along to the next guy. The next guy is very interesting. I think currently ranked 36 by consensus, eliminated from the College World Series today. Patrick Forbes, right-handed pitcher out of Louisville, 6'3", 220. We'll talk about some of the numbers. He has really upped his workload significantly this year, currently 20 years old, 71.1 innings pitched. He struck out 26% of guys in limited action last year, 36.7% this year. The walks are a bit of a problem, 10.7% of the time. They managed a 4.42 ERA and a 3.09 FIP. The fastball is a legit plus pitch. That's nasty. Really metrically appealing fastball that he hawks up to the upper 90s. And so I guess my question for him would be, like, again, like, we see less consistency here. And if you look at Forbes' game logs, he came out in one of the early season tournaments throwing 100 and just looked like an absolute world beater. And everyone's like, oh my God, who is this guy? And he's been shoved way, way higher up boards than he was at the beginning of the season. Then down the backstretch, he was a little bit uneven. And then in the College World Series had a pretty solid start. But how do you care about inconsistencies? Because we're going to talk about Gage Wood in a second, and we are riding the biggest ever wave of recency bias in talking about Gage Wood and right, what his draft ranking should be. So how do we apply that to Patrick Forbes, where the beginning of the season was excellent, the middle of the season was kind of rough, and then the end of the season was solid? How do we work that out?
Well, and the fact that he showed up to Louisville hitting.
Yep,
right.
It's true.
So he had 93 at bats in his freshman year, and he threw 9 innings, and then 29 innings in 24. Had an arm deal to start the year, and throws 100. So I think he's one that's more new to pitching. I think there's a lot of stuff you could potentially do there, but when I see flexor strain and I see 100 miles an hour, like, it's hard to not jump to that short conclusion, right?
Yep.
A lot of walks, tons of strikeouts. Like the range of outcomes here is pretty significant.
That's huge.
But again, how do you feel about the ceiling?
I mean, the ceiling is some of the better ceiling in this class in terms of pure arm talent, right? And so I think that's when you really have to think carefully about, like, not only what do you do well as a drafting organization, but the context of your draft, meaning how many picks do you have, how much money do you have to play with, how can you navigate that risk if you do go for a pick like that? What is the strength of your farm system? Can you absorb? You talked about this last week. Can you absorb hits by missing on some guys and taking bigger swings? I think if you're a team like the Twins, you can, because you have shown a consistent ability to generate new top 100 type prospects over the past couple of years. But I think there are some organizations who wouldn't be able to tolerate that risk.
Correct. So yes or no, is Forbes a viable option at 36?
If he's there at 36, I would absolutely be interested. It's very... I want to know who I've taken at 16. Like, if I've taken Gavin Keelan at 16, I absolutely pull the trigger on Patrick Forbes at 36.
Okay.
If I've taken Gavin Feen, who I would like at 16, I'm thinking a little bit more carefully about navigating like a double barrel risk. But the Twins are going to trust their model, and they're going to leverage that to make their picks, and they're probably not second guessing risk factors in the same paranoid way that I am.
Okay, so if you take Xavier Nines at 16,
who apparently there's some steam with the Twins on now, which I don't know that I get that one. We'll talk about that a different day, though.
Okay. But would you take Forbes at 36?
Depends who else is on the board, of course.
Okay. Way to not answer that one.
I mean, like, is there another college pitcher on the board? If there's like who are you taking out of Forbes and Quick if they're both there at 36?
I mean, I'd prefer Riley Quick.
I would too.
Okay.
I would too. Okay, we got to talk about one more guy. Got a listener question on this from Matthew Taylor, Twins Daily contributor. He says, any shot Gage Wood falls to the Twins? Probably not after today. He sent this on the day of Gage Wood's epic College World Series no-hitter, 119 pitches, complete game, 19 strikeouts, one hit batter away from a perfect game. You can't really do much more for yourself than throw a no-hitter in the College World Series. To which I replied, Gage Wood is currently 43rd by consensus. He is about to get shoved so far up boards. He was already on the rise before. But let's talk about Gage Wood and kind of his numbers and his performance and why he's so interesting. I think, to cut a long story short, I think where we're going to see him at the end of this, when it's all said and done, is he's going to be in the teens or at worst low 20s on draft boards. That's my opinion. He has had injury challenges, 37.2 innings this year. He's pitched a 3.82 ERA, a 2.06 FIP, struck out 46% of batters. That is more than Liam Doyle. Walked 4.7%. The skinny he also has like a really outlier fastball shape. So averages 96, 97 miles an hour, 17 inches of vert, which isn't crazy, especially with a college baseball, but he throws from a 5'5" release height, which is lower, making that play better at the top of the zone. And then he also has a ton of horizontal movement on that fastball too. So that's just like that was generating like a 50% whiff rate or something outrageous. And so I saw, and I don't know if you saw this, did you see Kylie McDaniel's mock today?
I did.
And yeah, he has
the Twins at 16.
Gage Wood going to the Twins at 16. So do I think there's a chance he'll be available for the Twins? Definitely. I do think the teens is maybe the range in which he's kind of pushed himself up into now. What is your Gage Wood opinion? Are you getting any Cade Horton vibes here?
Yeah. when you text me I'm in a vehicle. I'm riding back from a school thing, and you text me this, and my question was, where is he on the consensus board?
Yeah,
And you respond to me. In my mind, I'm like, is he going to go top 5 to the Cubs?
right.
Because that's exactly the same thing. Well, it's very similar, right? The parallels. Horton was a two-way guy, didn't pitch a lot. Gage Wood has thrown all of 108 innings in college.
Right.
Like there's an enormous amount of upside. Teams love upside. I've said the word like 36 times in 50 minutes. If he's available for the Twins at 16, he is the upside, right? And we know that. We can say that because he struck out 19 dudes in the College World Series. He was a hit batter away from a perfect game. Like he's done
It was.
all the things that he needs to do, and he's going to go in the top half of the first round.
I don't.
That.
Yeah, I don't want to be. This is going to come across as disrespectful. It will, but it was against Murray State, who were a 4 seed. No, I'm not. I'm not trying to. I'm just saying, like he's not. He's not throwing a 19K no hitter against LSU or anyone else in the. I almost said against Arkansas. Definitely not against Arkansas. I would really love to see him pitch again. I think Arkansas just got walked off by LSU, so they're done. I need live score updates here. Anyways, so let me ask you. Here's $1 million question with Gage Wood, right? Please slot him into the consensus board. Okay, so we've got right now we have Jamie Arnold, then Kade Anderson, Doyle, Witherspoon, Bremner, Quick, Root, Forbes, then Wood. Where does Wood actually belong, in your opinion?
I think him and Bremner are going to be plus or minus 2 from each other, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And I think that's probably in that 16, 17, 18 range. And I think that's fair. The guy didn't pitch between February 23rd and April 18th.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So all of the ups and the downs, you can't really have them because there was a 9-week stretch where he wasn't throwing a baseball.
Yep.
And so I think that plays into this too. And so he came back and he threw he got 1 out and gave up 3 runs against Texas A&M on April 18th. And then it was 3 innings, 4 innings, 2 innings, 3 innings.
And then what he do against Creighton?
In those 12 innings, he struck out 23 guys. And so now it's the middle of freaking May, and teams have to figure out who he is, right? And that's what's so hard. 13 strikeouts against Creighton on June 1st. And then no strikeouts in 3 1/3 against Tennessee a week later.
Yep.
But if you strike out 19 guys in the College World Series,
I don't know.
And it wasn't like, I mean, it was flailing at things that you thought you were going to hit, and then you're just not even close.
That was crazy.
That's like, if that's what he can do, you got to give that a shot. And I just don't think anybody's thinking Tyler Bremner can be that.
Yep.
Right. That and so if he goes before Bremner, if he goes 13 or 14, I don't think any of us would be surprised, would we?
No. I'm working hard to tell myself to not be surprised by anything, even though I'm sure there will be something that I find shocking on draft day. But 100%, yeah, I mean, I think like he is and like to Matthew's question, like he is a extremely purpose-built, like modern pitcher. Like there's an elite outlier pitch shape there that you can build off. Throws really hard, throws strikes. And again, the ceiling with some of these college pitching profiles rather, is a guy who can be in your rotation in 2 years if everything goes well. That's what you're looking at with Trey Savage. Trey Savage is now in AA. Now, they're going to want to give him some run there, but when the Blue Jays get to 2026, they're going to be counting on Trey Savage to be part of their rotation for a good chunk of that year. If you take one of these guys with the higher ceilings and they stay healthy and they perform, you're going to be hopefully seeing one of them in your rotation in 2027.
Except if you're the Angels, because then you have to play
Yeah.
in the majors before the next draft. Otherwise, you're a complete and utter failure. In fact, if you go second to the Angels as a college pitcher, you don't debut this year.
Hey, you know what? You can say what you want about the Angels, but Zach Neto is working out quite a bit better than Brooks Lee at this present time.
That's not wrong.
Remember when those two were kind of paired together as twins options?
And Brooks Lee wasn't going to be an option. He was going to be gone.
Right. This is true.
Christian Moore's been super. I mean, he made his debut. He's super fun.
Yep. Okay. Lastly, I want to cover a question from Lou. So we got Matt's question. We got another question from Twins Takes. That was about preferences between Arnold and Kade Anderson. We spent a lot of time on that. I do want to cover a question from Lou Hennessy, another Twins Stated contributor, who asks, I don't care about performance. What are some of the cooler baseball names in this class? So here's what we'll do, Jeremy. I'm going to give you a name of a prospect, and you can give me a scouting grade for said name, and we'll see who you think is best, and we'll get some of the good ones out there.
Okay,
We got to start with Ike Irish. Where is that on your scouting scale?
60, slightly above average.
Oh, wow. Okay. Steel Hall.
That's an 80.
Cruz Schoolcraft. Cruz spelled Kruz.
That, I mean, I'd give that a solid 70.
Diminutive prep outfielder Slater DeBrun.
Well, the Brun's a family name, right? And so, I mean, it's just he's got a sweet last name. Slater. If he's named after Saved by the Bell Slater, it's a 70. If he's named after any other Slater, it's like a 30.
Okay, how about Briggs McKenzie? I feel like that's a great baseball name. Or like you're in the Navy.
You'd score that one higher than I would. I mean, that's a 45 to me.
Oh wow, harsh. Okay, Michigan prep left-handed pitcher Uli Fernsler.
I was just looking at that, and I had to do a double take. Is Uli short for something?
I don't know. I love it though. He's 17 on draft. He's gonna be so good, dude.
I give that a 60.
Okay, I texted you about this one. 83rd currently by consensus. Tayton Gray. I'm gonna spell this out for you, Lou, because you took the time to ask this question kindly. As it Tate, right? As in T-A-I-T, but there's just an N on the end. Tayton Gray. No, I don't know what's going on there. Tayton Gray.
So he's from Iowa.
He is from Iowa.
Iowa made up of almost exclusively vowels. Right? And you just name your kid and you skip a vowel.
Yep.
Like there needs to be a vowel. I don't care what vowel. You can use a Y. Right? Stick a Y in there.
You're so mad about this.
Since there's no vowel, I give it a 20.
Okay.
Because I don't want anybody else naming their kids Tayton without that third, the vowel that needs to be there.
Prep lefty Talon Haley. Talon as in a bird's talon. Talon.
If it was Taln, 20. Otherwise, 50.
Okay, I got a good one. Mississippi State left-hander Pico Cone.
Spell that for me.
Pico, as if I was like Pico, as if you should know how to spell that. Pico, Pico.
Okay.
Cone, Kohn, like John, but with a K. I actually hope it's pronounced like John with a K. That would be better. Pico Con. Pico Cone. I like Pico Cone a lot.
Let's. I gotta go incomplete because I don't know.
I'm digging.
I need more information.
I'm digging that one. Let me see. I think that's about all we're gonna get. Yeah, I think we're done. We'll come up with some. There'll be some late helium here with some strange names. I got one more for you. It's an LSU transfer to Penn State. Paxton Kling. Last name Kling. Paxton Kling. I feel like that's a great baseball name too. No?
I mean, it is. It's a very solid baseball name. I'll give him a 50, 55.
All right. And on that note, we will stop yammering.
My favorite name though, Steel Hall. Definitely Steel Hall.
Steel Hall is great. We love it. some steam for Steel Hall to the Twins, along with a gazillion other guys. Wouldn't hate that pick at all. Okay, thank you guys for checking out the show. We appreciate all of your support. We will be back with episode 83 next week. We'll dig into another draft demo. We'll get some mocks in the mix here, and we are less than a month out, so we probably only got 3 shows. You know what we'll do, Jeremy? Next week we'll talk about what are our plans for draft night, because we should let the people know.
Let's do it.
I'm excited. All right. Till then, enjoy the baseball. Enjoy the rest of the College World Series. Catch you next time.